My life seemed content, at least that's what I believed. Upon graduating from university, I landed a job at the company of my dreams. Shortly after, I met Ben, who would become my husband, and we tied the knot when I turned 25. Ben was not only financially stable, but also incredibly kind-hearted. 3 years into our marriage, our daughter Deborah, or Debbie as we fondly call her, came into our lives. Her arrival seemed perfectly timed, adding joy to our already blissful existence. As a 30-year-old homemaker, I decided to leave my job to focus on nurturing and caring for Debbie, a decision I never regretted. She was turning 2, her infectious laughter filling our home with happiness each day. Watching her grow was a source of immense joy for me. Ben, equally enamored by our daughter, dedicated his free time to her, allowing me moments of respite on weekends. Thanks to his unwavering support, I maintained a well-rounded life. However, this tranquil routine shattered one fateful weekend when my in-laws, Brian and Carol, unexpectedly visited. My encounters with Carol had been infrequent, and truth be told, I harbored some reservations about her. From the onset of our relationship, Carol's disapproval of me was evident. She questioned my suitability as her son's wife, making disparaging remarks about my upbringing. In response, I often engaged in heated exchanges with her, unable to tolerate her negativity. Yet Brian and Ben, averse to conflict, urged restraint, attempting to quell any confrontations. Right from the outset, Carol and I never seemed to see eye to eye. So when Brian and Carol unexpectedly showed up at our doorstep, I was taken aback. Despite my surprise, I had no choice but to welcome them inside. Brian, Carol, what brings you here? I inquired, puzzled by their unannounced visit. Are you daft? We informed you earlier that we'd be coming, Carol retorted sharply. Well, I'm sorry, I must have forgotten to tell you. My parents are visiting today. Ben interjected apologetically, his forgetfulness not uncommon. Frustrated by the oversight, I quickly prepared tea for everyone, attempting to salvage the situation. As we settled down, I inquired, how can we assist you today, Brian and Carol? Surprised by my lack of knowledge, Carol questioned, didn't you hear from Ben? I informed him earlier. Feeling a pang of irritation, I shot a glance at Ben, who appeared uncomfortable but proceeded to speak. Actually, I've been discussing with my parents, and we decided to move in with them. What? I exclaimed, caught off guard by the sudden announcement. Ben explained, with Dad's recent injury, I've been worried about him. Plus, considering their age, it might be best for us to live with them and take care of them. Shocked by Ben's unilateral decision, I struggled to comprehend. Just because you think it's a good idea doesn't mean you shouldn't discuss it with me. This is a significant decision. Ignoring my objections, Carol interjected. Flora, your opinion isn't relevant here. We're more concerned about what Ben thinks. Feeling sidelined in a decision that deeply affected us both, I insisted. This is a matter that concerns both husband and wife. Let Ben and I discuss it and come to a decision together. Carol shot me a disdainful look before storming out of our house for the day. Once they had left, I confronted Ben, my frustration evident. Why didn't you discuss this with me? Deciding something so significant without involving me is not right. I'm sorry, Flora. I was just worried about my dad. Ben apologized, but I wasn't appeased. Being concerned about your dad doesn't excuse ignoring me in such matters. I countered, emphasizing the importance of mutual decision-making. Realizing his mistake, Ben promised to involve me in future decisions. So, what do you think about moving in with my parents? He asked tentatively. Hesitating, I confessed, honestly, I'm not keen on the idea. You know Carol and I don't get along. Ben pleaded, is there any way you could reconsider? I'll do anything. Protect me from your mother. If you can't, we're headed for a divorce, I asserted firmly, expressing the severity of my discomfort. Ben, taken aback, agreed to shield me from Carol's hostility. With his promise, albeit reluctantly, I consented to the arrangement, with a firm resolve to leave if he failed to uphold his commitment. Weeks later, we moved in with Brian and Carol. As we entered, Carol greeted us with a backhanded remark, but Ben, emboldened by our agreement, stood up for me, demanding respect. Though surprised, Carol relented, offering hospitality. Witnessing Ben's support gave me hope that perhaps living with Carol wouldn't be as daunting as I feared. If he could stand up for me, perhaps we could navigate this arrangement together. After settling our luggage in our room, I joined Brian and Carol in the living room for tea when I heard the front door open. It was Alicia, my sister-in-law. "I'm home," she announced cheerfully. "Are Ben and his family coming over today?" she asked Carol. "Yes, that's what I told you yesterday," Carol replied. Confused, I wondered if Alicia was now living with us. I had thought she had her own place elsewhere. When I inquired about her living arrangements, Alicia casually mentioned that she had been back living with us for 3 months now, a fact Ben had failed to mention. Ben's oversight frustrated me deeply. I coldly glared at him, mentally noting it as strike one against him. 2 more strikes and he would be out. Apologizing for his forgetfulness, Ben's feeble excuse did little to assuage my annoyance. I resolved to have a serious conversation with him later. Life at Carol's house started as expected, with her asserting dominance and immediately assigning me tasks. "Flora, why haven't you cleaned?" she demanded one day. "I've cleaned my room," I retorted. "You haven't cleaned mine or Alicia's room, and the lawn needs mowing," she continued, disregarding my response. "Why should I have to do all of that?" I questioned. "Are you back talking to me? You should be grateful we're letting you stay here," she snapped. I reminded her that we were living there because of Brian's health concerns and that she had invited us. Alicia, siding with Carol, only added to my frustration. Determined to prove them wrong, I took on all the household chores, even mowing the lawn in the scorching heat. Meanwhile, Carol and Alicia played with Debbie, my daughter, without my consent. When Ben returned from work, I relayed everything to him, demanding he address their behavior. During dinner, despite my efforts, Alicia and Carol continued to complain about me, unfazed by my grievances. "What is this dish? It's too bland for my taste." "I don't think I can finish it," complained Alicia, pushing her plate away. "I can't believe she's a housewife and a bad cook," remarked Carol, adding insult to injury. Ben, sensing the tension, intervened, putting down his utensils and addressing his mother and sister. "Hey, Alicia, Mom, please don't complain about the food. Flora made it for you to enjoy." Alicia retorted, "Ben, why are you defending your wife for this? Don't you have any dignity as a husband? Do you honestly think this food is good?" "I love Flora's cooking. It's delicious," Ben affirmed, attempting to defuse the situation. Watching Ben fail to stand up to Alicia's dominance, I felt a pang of disappointment. It was the second strike against him in my mind. Despite Ben's feeble defense, the bullying from Alicia and Carol persisted. Every day, they imposed numerous household chores and errands upon me, refusing to accept any objections. Carol even went as far as to assert, "A wife belongs to this family, so it's natural for her to work for the family. You should treat me the same as you treat Carol." Alicia echoed Carol's sentiments, implying that I must obey their commands without question. Frustrated by their unreasonable demands, I began plotting my escape from this oppressive environment, feeling increasingly certain that leaving their house was the only solution. Then, I received a call from my mother informing me that my father had suffered a stroke. While it wasn't severe, he was hospitalized. Hurriedly, I packed my bags to rush back and visit him at the hospital. As I was preparing to leave, Carol entered my room and questioned my actions. "Flora, what are you doing?" Apologizing, I explained, "My mother just called to tell me about my father's stroke. I need to visit him at the hospital." In response, Carol made an outrageous statement. "Who said you can leave? This is your home, and there's no other place for you." Feeling overwhelmed by Carol's demands and the toxic atmosphere, I reached my breaking point. Ignoring her, I left the house. At the hospital, I stayed with my parents for a few days, helping my mother with household tasks. During this time, Carol and Alicia incessantly called and left hostile messages, demanding my return. Their behavior fueled my anger, and thoughts of divorce and leaving Ben's house crossed my mind. Yet, fueled by resentment towards Carol and Alicia, I decided to take revenge. Preparing for revenge required careful planning. Despite my desire to avoid them, I returned to Carol's house. Even upon my return, Carol and Alicia continued to complain. Such nonsense. About 6 months later, during dinner, Carol excitedly announced, "He proposed to me. I'll bring him over for lunch next time." Feeling a surge of satisfaction, I realized the time for revenge had finally arrived. But my smile didn't go unnoticed by Alicia. "Flora, you're happy for me too, right?" Alicia remarked, misinterpreting my expression. A week later, Alicia brought her fiancé, Ken, to the house. Ken, an accomplished professional with a high income, appeared sincere and respectable. Alicia proudly introduced him to everyone, including me. Observing the scene, Carol seemed pleased and offered her blessings to the couple. Seizing the opportunity for revenge, I engaged Ken in conversation as I served tea. "So, will you be living with your parents after marriage?" I asked casually. "Oh, I haven't decided yet," Ken replied. "I'd heard there's a rule here that if your parents are over 60, you have to live with them," I continued. Surprised, Ken's expression changed. "There's no such rule in my family." I proceeded to inform Ken about the supposed rules and the mistreatment I endured from Alicia and Carol. Ken's discomfort grew evident. Unsure, Ken turned to Alicia for confirmation, but she dismissed my claims as jealousy. Determined to expose the truth, I played recordings of Alicia and Carol's bullying in front of everyone. Shocked and dismayed, Ken swiftly ended the engagement, leaving Alicia in tears. Feeling a sense of vindication, I packed my belongings and left the house with Debbie, leaving divorce papers for Ben. Despite Ben's attempts to reconcile, I stood firm in my decision, frustrated by his lack of support throughout our marriage. Later, I learned that both Ben and Alicia continued to leech off Carol without contributing to household chores. Alicia, devastated by the broken engagement, struggled financially, relying solely on her father's pension. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life, working hard and cherishing moments with my daughter. Though saddened by the situation with Brian's family, I found solace in my newfound independence and commitment to providing a better life for my daughter.